Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and happy birthday as well. And Mr. Secretary, I'd echo and second the comments already made by Mr. Cole, and glad to have you here today. I'd like to talk to you about sage grouse.
Thank you, Shelley.
I know, I don't want to steal Mr. Amadeus on there. You get tag teamed here by the Lake Erie people, and so I'm going to follow.
We put $13.5 million in for the carp. I've never seen one, but I know they're there.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't get a picture because Congresswoman Capter sent one around. Was the ugliest looking fish that I think she could ever find, that they sent it around and captured everyone's attention when we were at a full committee meeting one day. We were getting the, talking about carp, but
And I don't mean to joke on it, because I understand how serious it is.
Yes, it is.
It is a serious issue.
it's game, set, match if they get in the lakes.
Yeah.
But on that note, because I know you want to talk about this some more, is, obviously it's very important and critical for drinking water, but it also provides commercial and sport fishing, to name a few of the benefits. And visitors to Lake Erie region spent more than $14.1 billion in 2015. Approximately 124,000 Northern Ohio jobs, including jobs in mine and Congresswoman Capter's district, are directly linked to Lake Erie. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, or GLRI, aims to restore the Great Lakes ecosystem under one single initiative. It is guided by an action plan with a detailed performance goals. An interagency task force led by the U.S. EPA is coordinating federal efforts and directing funding to other federal agencies, states, cities, and non-governmental entities. As you know, the President's fiscal year 2018 budget request eliminates the GLRI, all funding. As of February 2017, the Department of Interior agencies have received significant funding under the program. For example, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has received more than $356 million to implement 814 GLRI projects, and the U.S. Geological Survey has received more than $100 million to implement 152 GLRI projects in the region. Can you describe for this committee the consequences your agency face if you were to eliminate or significantly reduce the funding for the GLRI program? And secondly, can you give us examples of Department of Interior projects that would end or be significantly curtailed if these cuts were to take place?
Well, let me pivot and tell you what we're doing. The USGS, I'm not sure how many studies were underway, but there's multiple studies on it. But there's some conclusions that have been made. About 43 deaths in animal illness have been related to the blooms. We know that. We know that the blooms primarily are coming from nutrients in agricultural areas. That's what's causing the blooms. So it is the chemicals and nutrients from ag. So we have to address that, and that is both EPA and ourselves, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. We know just in Lake Erie forced about 400,000 residents to go to without water for days. So we understand the consequences and the importance of it. The budget, as far as the Great Lakes goes, did include about $65.9 million in that. And it included about $13.5 million, which is about the same funding level in 17 for the carp. But the restoration part, I'll have to get with you on line by line on that part of it. Again, is that I understand the importance of it. I would think this budget is a baseline, and I'll work with you on it, and Congress gets the last chop. So.
And I appreciate that. In Word, we managed to insert funding for the GLRI of $300 million a year for 5 years. And as you well know, a lot of these studies and the things that we were doing are very important because they have to have some continuity to them. You can't stop and start some of these studies in order to make them effective and worthwhile. But I also take pride in the fact that the vote was 408 to 17, and not that I have those 17 laminated, but I did, but taking the time to explain to people who are normally, as you well know, no on everything, that this is the way, if we're going to operate as a government, we should operate, because all these task force, all these agencies shared information and worked in concert to produce the desired effect of trying to clean up this problem. And I agree with you, it is an ag problem, and of course we've reached out in the states and tried to explain and to farmers that it is in fact a problem, and that they can yield more with less fertilizer, and that takes time in the education process. So I'd appreciate working with you and offer any time to come down to your office and go through on a line-by-line basis. And you're more than welcome to ever come to the Great Lakes, you and Chairman Calvert, and I promise we'll highlight it with some fishing, and you can see firsthand that all the work that Governor, now Senator Voinovich, has done to restore the sport fishing to the Lake Erie and the Great Lakes.
Hopefully it's walleye, not carp.
Well, I hope so.
We have a large Great Lakes contingent on this committee.
Well, and if I can talk to the Great Lakes, just for a second, is that we're looking at reorganizing how we do business with the interior, because the carp issue is an example, but it's important to the Great Lakes. But if you go across to Florida, they don't know what it is. And so even our regions, within our different regions in interior, how you rack and stack the importance of things, a lot of really important issues locally and within the state gets lost. So we're looking at actually, rather than the USGS reporting to their region, the parks report to their region, we have these huge regions. We're looking at actually breaking it up a little and going to a joint model in smaller areas based on drainages. Powell suggested it back in the turn of the century, that he and Pinchot were late, and Roosevelt had left, they became out of favor. But we're looking at more of a model on smaller ecosystems based on reorganization. And then rather than everyone report to their own region, they would report to a joint management area like combatant commands. So these smaller areas can focus on the problems that are within their smaller regions. So we think that the one-size-fits-all model in D.C., and as we over time we develop these huge regions that sometimes gloss over issues that are incredibly important that need to be prioritized. So, and I'll go through with it with you in some detail the next time that because I'm quarterly where we sit on it. I've talked to Department of Ag. They're going to help us with a joint, because I think it's, if we can among our bureaus be a little more joint in how to do it, I think we're all better served.
I commend you on that, because it's a thoughtful strategy to getting this developing. And I was down in the Everglades because they have the same algal bloom issue that we're having in Ohio. And while they don't have Asian carp, they have the pythons, which are their problem. And you drive down 41 as you go across the Everglades, there's no roadkill. The pythons are managed to eat and everything. And so the problems are alike, but different maybe slightly. But that's a great strategy to try to combat the water crisis throughout the country.
Thank you, gentlemen.
gentleman